Welcome to The Remedy without Tova Sido. Oh, Tova decided that she was going to stay at the lake, and so she's not here with us. But you do have me, Janice Gaunt, and our fabulous producer, Tom Bridwell.
Hello.
And I want to introduce our very special guest, my husband, Tom Gaunt, the luckiest man alive.
You better believe it.
Good answer. So when Tova sent me a text and said that she wanted to stay at the lake for the afternoon with Craig, and she said, I thought it might be kind of fun for Tom to be on there, and then we can just talk to Tom, and you all can get to know Tom from the questions that I ask. I'll try not to embarrass him too much. But interestingly enough, I think Tom and Tom will be the two main guests because I want everybody to get to know Tom, the producer, also. So it's kind of a free-for-all, and if there's a lull, I'll sing or something. I don't know. But anyway, we're glad you're here and glad you're listening. So, I hope everybody listened to last week's episode. One of the things, Tom, that I was so impressed with was the quality of the sound. It was really good.
I really appreciate hearing that. That's kind of the most important thing for me, and I loved that you guys noticed that.
I mean, it was wonderful. The music's fantastic, and really, you definitely know what you're doing, so I feel like we have hit the mother load with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So, Tom Gaunt.
Yes, Janice.
Why don't you tell the listeners how we met? Wait, first of all, tell them a little bit about you. What you do for a living, how many children you have, how many times you've been married.
Oh, my. So I've been married twice now. My hope is that is as high as that number gets.
I agree.
I'm the CEO of a software company. I've been in technology my whole career. And let's see, I have a son who's now 30, who got married in August, and we found out at Christmas that they're about to have a baby.
Isn't that something? That'll be grandchild number 10 for us.
Grandchild number 10. It's crazy. The whole thing's crazy. But Corey is happier than he's ever been in his life, and, of course, that makes me happy.
Yeah, I know. It's really great. It's so much fun to watch these kids grow up and then to have these grandchildren, and they'll all love each other so much. I also got to meet Betty, who is Tom, the producer's daughter, and she is adorable.
Thank you.
Oh, my gosh. She was just so high and, didn't act like she met a stranger at all.
Yeah, she's got some spunk. She tells people that she's allergic to silence.
That is great. That's really funny. Well, Thomas, I call Tom Thomas a lot. Why don't you tell everybody how we met?
Okay. Let's see. So it's I'll give a little background to that story.
Okay.
Because so after I was divorced, I dated some people, and then I dated someone for 4 years, and it ended up not working out, and I was sort of more sad about that than I thought I would be, so I was sort of trying to figure out the next step, and I had a friend that played football at Kansas. By the way, the other Tom, it's another Jayhawk, but
Rock Chalk. And he was practicing yoga, and he told me that yoga was harder than football practice, which I thought yoga was stretching, so I thought that was complete BS. But what I did know is I worked out a lot, and I figured that yoga class would have a higher woman-to-man ratio than your basic spin class. So I figured, what the heck? So I went to a yoga class at a gym called Larry North, and that one wasn't harder than football practice, by the way. But I met a young woman in there, and we talked a little bit. She was very cute. And then later, another cute young woman came to class, and it turns out they were sisters. And so we would talk a little bit after class. And then one day after class, and by the way, class was 6 a.m., so we're not talking about 7 o'clock in the afternoon ready for happy hour or something. This was, walking out of the class around 6:45 in the morning, the two cute girls from class were in the hallway waiting for me. Like, this is interesting. And Bryn, the older of the two, said, "Tom, are you single?" And I said, "Absolutely, I'm single. What do you have in mind?" And she said, "Well, we think you should date our mom." Like, oh, goodness. Okay, I got to go. But then they kept talking to me about how wonderful Mom was. And I probably wouldn't have followed up on that, except Bryn then said, "Do you want her number?" and gave me her number. So then I went into the locker room. This is the long story, but I think it's good. And so I talked to a friend, and I said, "Royce, you're never going to believe what just happened to me." And I explained what had happened. And he said, "Well, Tom, Wesley, one of the girls, had told me that her mom does yoga and can do the same back bends and stuff that Wesley can do. And also, the odds of the mother of those two girls not being pretty are pretty low. So we don't have a lot of data, but the data we have is good. I think you should call her." And so I did. And so you want to add your 2 cents about that?
Yeah, he called, and well, first of all, I had no idea that the girls had this in their plan. And so they came home from yoga. Well, Wesley walked in and she said, "Mom, we gave Tom, this guy in yoga, your phone number." And there was an older man, Tom, that worked out at the gym. And I said, "You gave that old guy my number?" And she goes, "No, we gave the younger Tom your number." And I was like, "Well, I can't believe you did that. But unless he's desperate, he'll never call me." And he did call me. And then, so we met for coffee at the Starbucks on Inwood. And, well, I had coffee, he had tea. And then on our 1-year anniversary of that coffee, we went back to that Starbucks, and Tom asked me to marry him. And so, da-da-da-da, that's what it is. So it was, and I'd been single for 10 years and had dated, I had 2 kind of serious relationships in that 10-year period. And so none of the guys that I went out with worked out clearly, but my girls did a much better job of picking someone for me than I had done for myself. So it was really great, and we've gotten a lot of fun out of that. I was like, "Okay, were you hitting on my young daughters?"
Heck yeah. But
not really, y'all. He's not really a perv.
I think your definition of pervert is a little off. But, what I will say is, and I think there's sort of more that I want to talk about here, but obviously Janice is a beautiful person, a beautiful woman, and that made a difference. But we had a sort of similar life experience in some ways. But what really impressed me is that, at least my sense of it is Janice could have, well, the guy she dated before me, had a jet. So she could have taken the easy route and just sort of gone to lunch. And there's no doubt in my mind that some wealthy man would have married her, and she could have lived that kind of life. And you chose not to do that. And the fact that you went back to school, got your degree, and had, at that time it wasn't quite as busy as it is now, but created your own psychotherapy practice was super impressive to me.
That's really nice.
So, yeah. And I just remember smiling in the car on the way home.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was very cool. And what was really great about it was, Tom is a very kind man. he's cool, and he's fun, and he's handsome. And he had been single for like 10 years. I'd been single for 10 years. And I think we were both really ready to meet somebody that we could, really have a great relationship with. And I prayed about, I remember every night I had a therapist tell me when I was in grad school, she said, well, have you dated anybody that you like? And I was like, not really. I mean, kind of, I like them at first. And then when I see who they really are, the bloom falls off the rose. Is that the saying? Or the bloom falls off the bush. I don't know. Whatever it is, something falls off, and it doesn't work. And then the thing with Tom was that the more I got to know him, the more I really fell in love with him, because he's just a really amazing man, honest, kind, and all of that. So it was all purposeful. And I remember just praying and asking God, just bring me the right person, because I don't want to have another divorce. I want to make sure if I ever am in a long-term relationship that it's the right one. And so, I think my prayers were answered. I don't think I'm going anywhere. Are you?
Nope.
Oh, good.
But I don't. I guess a slight difference. I wanted companionship and all that, but I wasn't dead set to get married or any of those things. I just wanted to be with you, But I think, and part of it. And I do think part of what we want to talk about is that dad guilt thing. But
for sure.
I was about to ask if you had children from a previous marriage.
I do. And well, there's a couple things. One is, and I dated the women I dated before. It's two choices. Either they don't have kids. Well, I guess there's three. But in my experience, they didn't have kids and wanted them, or they did have kids and wanted to, put the families together, right?
Yeah.
And in the first case, I think it stems back to my guilt over the marriage falling apart and Corey being from that situation.
Yeah.
But the concept of me marrying someone, having a new child that was in my home 100% of the time, and Corey was there part-time, I just thought that would be shitty for Corey.
Yeah.
Now, upon reflection, kids are pretty resilient. I think he'd have been fine. But I was concerned about that. And then on the other hand, women that had kids, the idea of, like, one asked me to have them over for a slumber party. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I do remember that one of the things that was really cool about Janice was that she had kids. Well, two things. I wasn't worried about mixing because her daughters picked me, right? So there wasn't any, I didn't have to be concerned about winning them over.
Are they going to think I'm okay?
Yeah, I really didn't. And the third one that wasn't there, I came recommended by the other two, and she's the one that went to KU. And Blair and I hit it off right away anyway. And they loved Corey, but they're, older. And so they didn't have to fight over who's in the bathroom or any of that kind of thing. But I remember one night we were supposed to do something, and Corey was going to be with his mom, and she couldn't do it that night. And she called and asked if I could take Corey. And in my past, well, most women would say, okay. They would sort of get their nose out of joint a little bit, right? And you just said, let's go get him. And at that point, I savored every moment I had. And I was fortunate in that I had a ton of time with Corey.
Yeah.
My ex and I did Zuma was super good about that. We did a good job with that, I think.
Well, and you made it easy for me to do that, because there were times when you and I had a date and we were going to go to the movie or something, and you said, hey, would you mind if Corey went with us? So rather than you saying to me, I'm going to be with Corey and I'm not, so you gonna break our date just because I want to be with Corey. But you were always like, can Corey come with us? And I always said yes, of course. He was 12 years old and he was cute and funny, actually hilarious. And so you made it really easy for me to do that. And one of the things that I realized early on was that I was not responsible for Corey. I was responsible to him to be kind and to be considerate and to love him, and we really have had a great relationship. And when Tom asked me to marry him, first of all, I told Corey. I said, Corey, look, you have a mother. Nobody wants two mothers, so my job is to suck up to you and be your friend. And he was like, sweet, that sounds great. And so that's what I did. And so like if Corey, let's say Corey was a great kid. But sometimes he would leave his dishes in the dishwasher. In the sink rather than put it in the dishwasher. And I would say, hey, Corey, would you please put your dishes in the dishwasher? So I just made request of him, and he always did it. And then if there was something that was really kind of needling me, I would go to Tom with that and let Tom handle that his way, because I knew that I did not want to discipline Corey. He has another mother. He had a mother. And I actually called Zuma, which was Tom's ex-wife, and told her the same thing. I said, look, I just want you to know that I have no intention whatsoever of being Corey's mother. I'm going to be Corey's friend. And so that's how that worked out. And it was the right move. And I encourage people if they're at a place of trying to blend some families, that they remember that, because kids don't need two sets of parents. They already have a father, they have a mother. Even if the parents are not together, that is their father and their mother. And when we move in and try to become the authoritarian in the relationship with somebody else's kids, a lot of times you're going to have rebellion. And since Corey was 12 years old, he was embarking on the teenage years, and I did not want to do anything that would push him away from us. So it worked out great. And Tom was always willing. If I said, hey, Corey's blah, 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 would you speak with him about it? Like, it were things like making up his bed, and Tom always did that. So it really worked. It really worked well. Yeah. And my girls were gone, so he didn't have any financial responsibility or anything that he had to correct them for. They needed correcting at times, but you kind of kept your mouth shut. So that's how it worked out. So Tom, up in the booth.
Yes.
Tell me, how did you guys meet? And what's y'all's story?
Okay, so I moved from Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas. I moved to Dallas in 1997. Maureen was in Lawrence. I did not know I hadn't met her yet, but she was there for the 3 years that I was there. And I came to Dallas to do audio engineering. Basically, I tell people I went pro. I was studying music and left college early to go pro, and I haven't looked back.
Good decision.
One day, it was the Mother's Day Massacre, May 8th, 2011. This is one of the top 10 Mavericks wins of all time.
That was a big one.
We beat the Lakers 4-0 to go to the finals just before we won the whole deal. And that Sunday night, I went into the Lakewood Landing and ran into my friend Aaron Brinkman, who was one of my pledge brothers at Kansas. I had not seen him for 14 years.
Oh, my.
And I walked up to the bar and looked over, and there he was. And I said, Aaron Brinkman. And he said, Tom Bridwell. And he's like, you got to come back here and play pool. Let's do some catching up. And he was playing pool with Maureen and another girl, Brittany Rogers from Dallas.
Oh, my.
And I got her number that night. And within 10 days, I was Facebook stalking her. And we started dating, and the rest is history. But Yeah, I met my wife at the Lakewood Landing. That's the short version of the story.
I love it. So, what was it about Maureen that you were attracted to?
It was far and away her brain. That is such an important thing for a long-lasting relationship, at least in my history. I feel like up to that point, I think the longest girlfriend I'd ever had was 18 months, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I feel like I was into the wrong things, and the brain was like kind of took a back seat.
Yes.
And one day I just kind of realized that the brain is really what I'm attracted to most, and that with Maureen, that was the situation for sure.
That's so cool. That's one of the things that it really attracted me to Tom also. Tom's he was a National Merit Scholar. I mean, he's really smart. And I like that too. I think it's interesting to be around somebody who is cool and smart at the same time, which is one of the things I liked about Tom. So how long have y'all been married?
We got married in 2013, so we're in our 10th year.
Okay.
And Betty is about to be 8. So, we spent the first year kind of having fun as just a married couple, and then right at the end of the first 12 months, we started trying, and we hit a home run on the first try.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, Betty's hilarious, and 1 is definitely that was the plan from the get-go. We were not going to have 2. In retrospect, that may have been a difficult choice, because I feel like there's been lots of times we wish she had a sister or brother to help play with her.
Yes.
I feel like we are the brother and sister and the mom and dad. And so maybe to anybody listening, having one child is a lot. You think it's going to be easy because it's just one kid, but I think it maybe is a little harder than 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see how it would be that way.
We definitely have regretted not having one immediately after. But then again, I mean, we're past the hard time now. But I would say from the 2 to 5-year-old age, we really wished that we had a sibling for Betty to play with.
Yeah, it does help them entertain. And you probably had some of that too.
I did. And for me, my first wife and I separated when Corey was 4. We didn't get divorced right away, but and for a lot of reasons. Well, my job requires travel, and so the every other weekend, Wednesday situation just wasn't going to work for us. And to her credit, she was fine with that. And so I ended up having him, I think, for a couple of years, most weekends, not all weekends, but a lot of them at my request. Not, Zuma didn't want to get rid of Corey, but she had him during the week and was fine to let me do that. But there was a ton of one-on-one time. And, I was his sole source of entertainment. We would find, once he started later in preschool, there were friends, and then we moved into an apartment. It's interesting talking about sort of the guilt, how I felt about all that. I felt terrible. Getting divorced, I think, Zoom and I were better as exes than we were at the end as a married couple. And I feel sure if she heard this, she wouldn't disagree. But I've kind of lost my train of thought. Where was I going? Oh,
Dad guilt.
Yeah. So, and so I was with him a lot. Oh, I know what I was going to say is that, so, like one example is we started going to the church primarily to get Corey into the preschool.
Yeah.
But Zuma then started getting very involved in the church. She was teaching Sunday school. And, I'm not proud, but I was pretty apathetic about the whole thing, right? And then when we did split up, A, I had a lot of time on my hands with Corey, but B, I thought,
nothing bad's going to happen to Corey in church. Now, if you read Janice's book, you might get a different opinion about that. But
some churches, we talked about that with Tom last weekend because he grew up.
Yeah, but this was a pretty loving
It is.
place.
Yeah, it's a great church.
And so I started going. And, I would drop him off to Sunday school, go to the gym, come back, and then go to the service, and then finally got lured in. But at some point, Zoom was like, so now you're Mr. Church Guy, right?
Yeah.
And I had to admit, she's got a fair point, right? That probably didn't feel great. But I really was trying my best to have a really good environment for Corey. And so I remember when I first went to look for an apartment, which was kind of fun. I didn't want to be divorced and all that stuff, but I remember going into Uptown and there was a lot of cool places. And one of the times Corey was with me and I just thought, this doesn't really look like a 4-year-old's situation. And so we got an apartment at one of these fourplexes on Normandy that doesn't exist anymore. And we had a neighbor across the way that had a son about Corey's age. So that was fun, right? Because then it wasn't, to Tom's earlier point, it wasn't just me. You know? And I didn't have a wife. And, that is not a girlfriend situation, right? That's a me situation. And, so I did a lot of things, I think, made a lot of decisions that were what I felt to be in Corey's best interest, but I'm sure I just overthought the heck out of it because I felt guilty about the situation.
And one of the things that you did that really impressed me when we were dating was you cooked dinner for Corey, and Tom would make dinner, and he had these really ugly plastic placemats, but he would set them out on the table and set the table. And he would make dinner. Remember that tuna casserole that you put peas in it?
I miss that tuna casserole. Corey likes it.
You should make that for Corey when he comes to spend the night before his trip. But it really impressed me that you took the time. You were adamant about making sure that he had a home-cooked meal at night, that y'all sat down at the table, you said a blessing. And I think that I remember thinking, God, that's just so awesome. It was just really cool. And I think so I don't know, Tom in the booth, have you ever had dad guilt from like working or anything? I don't know if he's up there. Are you up there?
I have not had dad guilt. Oh. Sorry, my mic was muted up for a second.
Okay.
I have not had dad guilt, but that's because I'm a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
I basically have been around. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of the mom, sort of like in the sense that I'm here during the day. I most of the time, at least before she was in school for the first 2.5, 3 years, it was me and her every single day while Maureen went to work.
Yeah.
Now she's in school, but I still do all of the carpools for all of the activities for school. And I feel like, and then like days like today, the holiday, Martin Luther King Day, except for this podcast, I've been inside with her. So I don't really have guilt because I'm around all the time.
Yeah.
I think maybe the only time I've felt guilt would just be on maybe a severe punishment, but you kind of have to, like, I really understand where my parents came from.
Yeah.
Because, I thought they were really, really hard on me on certain situations, and now looking back on it, I was wrong. They were doing what they had to do, and I'm having to do those things now. So maybe a few punishments I've laid down for her, I felt bad, but it goes away because, they're resilient, and I guess I am too.
Well, I think that there are plenty of things that we can look back on and have some guilt about. But I think that one of the things that I've done with my children, an interesting side note is that Blair, my youngest daughter, and Tom Bridwell, the producer, are friends. When after our last podcast, when we recorded, Blair called and said, "How did it go?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, it's great." She said, "Well, who's your producer?" And I told him, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, he's a friend of mine." And I've been to parties at his house and blah 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 blah
Yes.
blah, which is
It's
really
a small world.
It's such a small world. But I have made amends to my children freely for some of the things. Like they will sit at the dinner table or Thanksgiving or something, and they'll be like, "Mom, remember when you made us wear those big ugly bows just everywhere we went?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I really." That was not good. I apologize for that. I should have taken those bows off. So it's really easy for me to say, I apologize for that behavior or that idea.
Wearing bows, that's, I guess, in the whole scheme of things, it's not the end of the world there.
No, it's not.
I don't really know if you should have to apologize for something like that.
Well, they brought it up, you know.
That's hilarious.
I know, it's really funny. You'll have to tease Blair about it. I should give you a bow and have you tell her to put it in her hair the next time you see her. But I can see, Tom, that you had some guilt about because you were traveling.
Well, yeah.
Just having to be away.
And you know, I made some decisions that might not have been the best, right? I mean, I when Corey was really little, I was doing a startup in San Francisco. And I mean, I had an apartment in San Francisco. Now, the grand plan was raise around, we move there, right? So, but that's not what ended up happening. And so I'd be gone for a week, but I would take a red eye home Friday, get home, land at, 5:30 Saturday morning, come home, and then leave Monday. But I can remember when Corey was 2 or 3, I could tell when I got home, when you're expecting, the warm, "Yay, Dad," he's like, "Who are you?" Right? I mean, he was not happy.
Well, gosh, you had to have been so exhausted after flying all night, and
yeah,
that was hard.
And I didn't do the red eye all the time, but I guess the thing was clearly he had a reaction to that,
Mm-hmm.
and then once we were, and that was before we were divorced, and then when we were, then, like I had a job where I was in Austin 4 days a week, but he was with his mom, but still, right? I mean, I wasn't, if there was something that happened Tuesday night, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I felt so guilty about that, but looking back on it, I think maybe my priorities weren't completely in the best possible place. And I don't think that, I will say, I don't recommend divorce. It's painful, and I'm certain that it's hard on children. That being said, I feel pretty sure I spent more one-on-one time with Corey than I would have had we stayed married, because in all those weekends that it was just he and I, it was just he and I.
Yeah.
Kind of as Tom was saying. So
That's interesting. Did your son act out ever? Was there ever any behavioral changes from like within the year or two after the divorce?
There really weren't. I think that I got to believe that over time there are things that came to him as a result of this. But he didn't start acting out in school.
Yeah.
The things that we were challenged with, I think, didn't relate to that.
Yeah.
Corey is when he was about, hopefully this doesn't embarrass him, but when he was like a baby, he was having ear infections, and his pediatrician was trying to get him to sit still to do something, and Corey was, wriggling and yelling, and the guy looked up at me and said, "Someday he's going to be a CFO and he's going to torture everybody around him." So Corey's a strong-willed guy and has been from the very start. And I think that probably helped him some.
Yeah, but it's sweet.
Oh, yeah,
Sweet nature.
Sweet kid. But, there were times, like when we were first separating, we would we'd be together for Christmas and things like that, and which was awesome, but also it was just hard. It was just really hard. But, I will say that there was one year where Zuma and her then husband were going to be in Minnesota for Christmas, and she said, "Tom, we're gonna," and I had no position to say no, but I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend Christmas without Corey. And they said, if you want to go to Minneapolis, you can spend the day there. And so I flew to Jason's mom's place. And I mean, so that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm probably pretty weird for having done it, but it was pretty gracious that they allowed that.
But I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think that that's one thing that you and I have made a real concerted effort around, which is including our exes in our events. We have, Kurt comes at Thanksgiving. That's my ex-husband, and Christmas and Easter and all of and birthdays, all of that. And Zuma has come on a couple of occasions. She's always invited, and so it's been great because Tom and Kurt, my first husband, and Zuma and I have a very, very cordial relationship. We like each other, and if you're in that sort of a situation, that's a real gift that you can give your children, because what had happened before Tom and I got married, then the girls would be at my house at Christmas, and then they'd go to Kurt's house at Christmas. So we'd have Christmas lunch, and then he'd have Christmas dinner over there. So the kids were just having to go back and forth. And then once Tom and I got married, and we decided to, I don't know why I didn't invite him back in the day, but I don't know, maybe I was mad at him or something. But once we started doing that, it really made it so much more simple for the kids, and that's where, and the grandkids now, because that's, if you can look at those sort of, yes, divorce is hard and it's not fun and it's not what we want to do, but if it happens, we want to make it as positive for the kids as we possibly can.
They didn't have any say in the matter, right?
No, they weren't. They didn't cause that divorce.
No, and I think that, I have seen that neighbor I mentioned across the hall. It was just the most amazingly horrible situation that they were, those two, that Connor's mom and dad could not, it was just like, he said one time that it was the mom's time to have his son, but she was going to be out of town. So rather than just saying, hey, why don't you keep him for the weekend, which any sort of rational person would do, she created this labyrinth of different people to care for him. And this guy was able to see his son at a soccer game, and that was it. And it's just ridiculous. And it's not about me or you at this point. It's about them. And I mean, it ain't perfect, but I do think that, I remember one time we had a birthday dinner for Corey or something, and Zuma and Jason, but also Pete and his wife, everybody was there. Yeah. And everybody was, talking, laughing. And I just looked at Corey, and he's just got this big family. And I don't know that was super meaningful for him sort of at a, conscious level. But I just have to believe that was helpful.
Well, and I think that as our children grow up, they'll look back on those things and think that was really good to have that happen. Because what we were demonstrating to the kids, which I think is really important in divorce relationships or when people split up, is that the kids see the parents be kind to one another, and that we don't have to hate somebody because the marriage didn't work. Right. But I do think that, I had guilt about getting a divorce. I was, I felt terrible about it as far as them not being able being able to be with their dad all the time. But they were, he was around plenty. And so it all worked out, it worked out to be good. Mm-hmm. So, Tom Bridwell, so your in-laws, where are they?
Maureen's parents are, Maureen's mother passed away about 2 years ago. Oh. And then her father is at the Preston, and he is suffering from dementia. Oh. And so he's doing okay, I would say, but he's started the end process, I would say, also.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's
It's
so
tough,
hard.
you know,
Is she
but
doing
Maureen's
okay with it?
Oh yeah, she's strong as can be, and she's kind of always been running the show. She's the middle kid, and she's definitely the one running things, so to speak.
It's hard.
And she's very good at it.
That's good. How old are her parents? Or how old was her mom?
Her mom was, gosh, I don't know. I want to say she was 74 or 5 when she passed away, and her dad is 78, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. That's a hard time of life.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They were really we got along great the first 5 years of our marriage. I mean, before things started to go downhill with her mom and dementia and now her dad, but we had a great 5 or 6 years of relationship for sure.
Oh, I'm glad about that.
It was awesome. And then my parents, my dad is 71 and he lives in Abilene, and then my mom she's my stepmother, but she's 64.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Robbed the cradle.
He sort of did, I guess.
I robbed the cradle. Tom's younger than I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Well, what else, babe? What else do you want to talk about? Let's talk about how fabulous I am. Would you like to start with the letter A?
We just don't have time to cover all that ground, Janice. We could say Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
We could say Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Do they play tonight?
Tomorrow night.
You know,
Tomorrow
I don't
night?
know,
Tomorrow
but even if they do, I'm going to be watching the Cowboys.
Tomorrow night they play K-State.
Oh,
Yes.
they do? Yeah. Do you watch all those games, Tom?
If I'm available, I do. And towards the end of the season, I get a little more involved in, obviously, the tournament.
Yeah.
I'm keyed into everything. And we've got the new Goodbye Horses to watch the games at, which is awesome. You know,
Oh, yeah.
Julian's place.
Yeah, Jules' place.
Oh,
yeah.
I haven't watched a game there.
It's really awesome. It's a great
should
place to
do
see.
that.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, we'll plug Goodbye Horses. It's a new kind of food bar close to SMU. It's amazing. There are so many televisions.
It's directly across the street from the Barley House.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Next door to Oishi.
yeah, and it is so good. Have you had a hamburger there?
Yes, I have.
Oh my gosh, Blair and I split a hamburger, which I don't eat hamburgers very often, and it was so good.
They were offering those during the World Cup as like a special. That's when I had one.
Oh, they're so good. And the pizzas. This
good.
is the same guy, friends of Tom Bridwell and my daughter Blair and Wessling and Brand. They're all friends with him. But he has Odelay and
Carbones.
Carbones, Nana with his mom. I mean, yeah, he's quite the entrepreneur, isn't he?
Definitely. Yeah, he had Sprezza until
Yep.
Harlan Crow bought the place and tore it down.
Yeah. That was the one on Maple.
Yes, I loved that restaurant.
So speaking of Jayhawks, I will share that.
And he's a Jayhawk too. That's right.
Yeah, we had I had the best Jayhawk fan experience in 2008. KU, that's when they had Todd Reesing, went to the Orange Bowl. So I told Janice that that's going to be the only time in my life, most likely, that they go to what was then called the BCS Bowl. And then Janice, who went to Texas Tech, turns out Tech was playing in the Gator Bowl. So we flew to Jacksonville, saw Tech win the Gator Bowl, flew to Miami, saw KU against all odds beat Virginia Tech and win the Orange Bowl. And then 3 months later, I went to San Antonio and watched them come back from being down 8 with 2 minutes to go to beat Memphis to win the national championship. So I got to see a Orange Bowl victory and a natty in 3 months. So that's pretty good.
We had so much fun on that trip. It was kind of almost like our honeymoon because we just had our gear on and just went to football games. It was really fun.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And then we were in Mexico with some friends when Tech played for the Final Four in basketball and Tech lost. I could cry about it now.
This year, it's not as amazing as your trifecta in Florida and San Antonio, but this year I got to go, or last year I got to go to my very first Masters in person.
Oh, that's awesome.
And while I was there, I got to watch Kansas win the basketball championship. So that was
that is
obviously
amazing.
that was one heck of a Monday, being in Augusta and getting to see the Masters while Kansas won the championship.
I've had the great fortune to go there several times through a work-related deal, and it's just so beautiful. Just TV does not do justice.
It's amazing.
It's quite a property.
Yeah.
It is quite a property. Yeah. That is for sure.
It is. Well, guys, anything else you want to add?
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Hi, Tova.
Hi, Tova. We miss you. I hope that we've done okay.
Well, yeah, I had big shoes to fill here, Tova.
You really did. Tova's very popular.
No doubt about that.
And now you will be too. But the girls have to keep their hands off, right?
Right.
Well, okay, guys. Thank you so much. Tom, thank you for participating. Tom Bridwell.
Absolutely.
Tom Gaunt, thank you for being our guest.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Such a pleasure. Okay, guys. Well, we will see you in a week. Such a